I want to start the show off on a positive note, talking about the brand new Testament song called Shadow People, off of the upcoming album Parabellum, which comes out October 10th, 2025. I'll throw some pre-order info in the show notes for you all to pre-order the album if you haven't done so already. Typically, Nuclear Blast, the band's label, is probably the best place to do that. However, they do have what I think is going to be an outstanding album coming out. Also, many of you have emailed me and messaged me asking me what was the first album by Testament that I ever listened to and how did I get into the band. So I'll touch on that in this segment as well, because it's actually an interesting story. And I'll give you a hint, folks. I didn't like Testament when I first heard them, and I'll tell you why. Anyway, let's talk about the song. So we had the first song, Infanticide AI. To me, I was floored by how incredibly well written and well performed and how great that song sounded. For me personally, it's probably one of the best songs I've ever heard from Testament. You had a little bit of that black metal influence in it, which of course, you know, Eric's a black metal fan, obviously, with the Dragon Lord project that he's had in the past. And I think he added a few of those. They added a few of those elements in that song, and I was absolutely blown away. I'm like, man, this is like one of the best tracks I've ever heard this band record. And now we have a song called Shadow People, which is a much different track. And again, I like it. It's got more of a groove-oriented sound. And this is a sound that a lot of the Bay Area bands have developed over the years. Like Exodus does, writes songs with this kind of groove, kind of riffing going on. But overall, I think it's another excellent single. And so it's kind of a tale of two tracks, because this one, in my opinion, is a lot different than Infanticide AI. It's a little bit slower. It's not as up-tempo. It's not as upbeat. And it's obviously a longer song. And, it really depends on your preferences. Now, personally, as much as I love this track, I think Infanticide AI was probably, in my opinion, I like that single better. But I think the reason I like that song a lot better is Shadow People is the type of track Testament has written before. Whereas Infanticide is not something you would typically hear from them. Now, you do hear some influences, that sound like that track on other albums here and there. But man, I'm really looking forward to this upcoming Testament album. The last couple have been okay. I think Brotherhood of the Snake, I thought, was probably a little bit of a letdown for me. Still a pretty decent record. But I think this upcoming album, Parabellum, it's going to be incredible, folks. I cannot wait to review it and to check it out. But essentially, if I'm going to compare the new single to, Shadow People, to the old one, not the old one, but the previous one, I would say I like Infanticide better. And it's really a matter of preference, because they're both pretty, they're both different tracks. But Infanticide AI, to me, is an incredible track. Shadow People is good. I don't like it as much as the previous single, but I am really looking forward to the album. And I think Shadow People also is kind of a little bit of more of a safer song to put out there. But again, with Testament, world-class players, world-class production, outstanding songwriting. Chuck Billy, as always, an incredible vocal delivery. And you really can't, I don't think anyone's going to be able to go wrong when it comes to thrash metal. Nobody's going to go wrong with this album. So definitely looking forward to the record. I look forward to reviewing it. And I think this new track is good. I just don't like it as much as the previous single. Now, as far as how I ended up getting into Testament, well, it's an interesting story, isn't it? Because this was a band when I was young. And now keep in mind, I was getting into heavy metal at the dawn of the grunge era. So all the grunge bands were big. It was really hard to find heavy metal CDs in stores. Obviously, there was no streaming. You didn't have high-speed internet. There was no downloading. So really, you had to go by word of mouth, buy a CD or cassette back then, and take a chance on a band. And so I had been hearing about Testament from friends of mine, talking about Alex Skolnick is this incredible lead player, and the band writes all these great songs. I heard of, albums like Practice What You Preach and The Legacy and The New Order. And I'd heard about all these really, incredible albums that this band had done. But because it was during the grunge era, it was very, very difficult to find music by this band in a music store, because that's where you had to go to get music, is you had to go to music stores. I mean, they did have a form of mail order back then. However, it was, it was very problematic. I was young. I didn't have a credit card, so I couldn't just call a number and order an album. So I had to go to a local music store. Finally, early 1994 happens, and I'm finally able to get a copy of a Testament album. I finally found one music store that had a copy of the album. And the album, when I heard it, I was a little disappointed, and I almost wrote the band off. And the album in question is the album The Ritual, which I found on a cassette tape. I couldn't even find it on CD. And I remember hearing Electric Crown, and I'm like, man, everybody talks about this band. I mean, it's okay. And looking back on that album, I like it a lot better than I did when I first heard it, but I almost wrote the band off. Because, again, being that is the only record available to me at the time, I had to think to myself, man, this is the album that came out a couple years ago, 3 years ago, whenever it was. This is this band everybody's raving about, and I'm not really feeling it. Well, as 1994 moved on, Testament had a new album coming out called Low. And then miraculously, their back catalog started appearing in music stores. So, again, what will typically happen, at least back then, you would always notice that when a band was coming out with a brand new album, they would do a run on their back catalog and, sell it, to try to get some, CD sales or record sales, along with the new album that's being promoted. So Low came out, or was coming out. And I remember when that happened, suddenly the music store that I went to most frequently, I found a CD copy of The Legacy and The New Order. And I thought, a lot of my friends raved about these albums. None of them mentioned The Ritual, but they did mention these two records. So I took a chance. They were like, I don't know, $8.99, something like that per album. So I bought both of them. And I remember first hearing the guitar solos in this song Over the Wall off of The Legacy. And immediately I was like, man, now I know what everybody was talking about when it comes to this band. And then, of course, Practice What You Preach. I ended up finding that because that ended up coming in. Souls of Black ended up coming in. So I ended up with those 4 records, and then The Ritual. And then Return to the Apocalyptic City, the EP, and then pre-ordered the album Low. And Low, to me, is still one of the band's most underrated, underappreciated albums. I used to listen to that record all the time back then. So that is how I ended up getting into Testament. That is how I discovered them. For those of you that are wondering about what my favorite Testament album is, it is definitely, for me, Dark Roots of the Earth. It's actually my favorite album cover by the band as well. But that may change. That may change with this upcoming album. I don't know 100% yet. I haven't heard it, but I'm definitely interested in checking that album out, and I can't wait to review it. But it could dethrone Dark Roots of the Earth. Who knows? But the 2 singles that have come out have definitely really made me very excited about this record. Hey, it's Tony here from the Metal Command Show. I want to thank you for watching this portion of the program. Since 1998, I have hosted the show, which started off as a radio program and is now into the podcast format. So I want to thank you for watching and or listening. And if you want to support the program, hit the subscribe button, hit that little bell to be notified anytime I do post any content. A lot of you have been supporting the show and really helping this show grow, and I cannot do it without all of you. So with that said, thanks for watching. Stay metal.